Okay, welcome back to Culture Cretins. This is our episode where we're going to review Pokemon Legends ZA. I'm Nate, he's Will.
Yes, sir.
We don't want to give too much spoilers for anybody who hasn't played it, but if you haven't played it by now, I'm sorry, you might want to tune out for some potential spoilers.
This will be a very spoiler-heavy podcast. So if you have not played it, please play it and come back. But if you have no intention on playing it, this might also be something you might listen to see if you want to pick up the game in the first place.
So, Will, what were your first impressions of Legends ZA? Positive, negative?
So I was very excited for this game whenever they announced it several years ago. I know it's kind of been in a pretty rough development cycle. It was announced alongside Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. And I was a really big fan of Pokemon X and Y. When those games came out, I was really getting back into Pokemon. And I liked the theming. I feel like it had a very um, pronounced theme, very rich in characters and environments. And I was excited to see more from this region. The thing that I was skeptical of course, everyone else was, um, this game only takes place within Lumiose City. You don't get to see the entire rest of the Kalos region. So that could be a point of contention, but coming into this game, that didn't bother me too much. I really liked the setting, and I was curious to see how it went. And I was surprisingly disappointed with some aspects of this game. Um, so we'll get into that. Nathan, what did you think?
So, overall, I was very pleased with the game. I thoroughly enjoyed it, especially for the first, 20, 30 hours of playing it, which I'm pretty easy to please. I've liked pretty much everything that Pokemon has put out for forever, but I really honestly in some ways it probably exceeded my expectations. And the reason I say that is while Legends Arceus is widely beloved in the Pokemon fan base, Legends Arceus is one of my least favorite games that Pokemon has ever done. And that's not to say there weren't some good things about it. It just wasn't really my thing. And so I didn't really know what to expect. And like you said, with it all being in one city, okay, well, how's that going to work out? And with this being the first Pokemon game released on the Switch 2, what is that going to look like? I really enjoyed Legends CA. I thought the setting was beautiful. I I enjoyed the ZA Royale to an extent, and we'll talk about that more here in a second. But overall, I really liked it. I liked the experimenting with different battle mechanics and whether or not that was a hit or a miss, we'll talk about in a second. But I thought it was an improvement over Legends Arceus's battle mechanics, and I thought it was an ambitious thing to do. So overall, I really enjoyed the game, and I think it was a good entry from Pokemon.
I think this is going to be really interesting because although we share a lot of views on some of these Pokemon games, I feel like this one we have such a dichotomy in views that's going to make it more, um, I don't know, more intriguing to see kind of where we each liked or disliked different aspects of the game. Because I really liked Legends Arceus, and I'm not usually into that kind of game. It took me a while to warm up to something like a Breath of the Wild game, but I really like the crafting system, the Pokeballs, and so on in that game. So I'm curious to see what you think of some of these other features.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And yeah, with Legends Arceus, I mean, I felt like there were certain aspects that everybody liked. The Pokeball throwing system,
Right,
the
right.
catching system was great, and I'm glad that they largely brought that back. It wasn't the same. You're not throwing feather balls across the map and hitting flying Gyarados anymore. But it
More on that
I
later.
Yeah, I like that they kept some of those things, but I personally thought it was sharper, better looking graphics. And
It's a very, very visually pleasing game, despite some discourse that I've noticed.
yeah, I've seen some people online. I mean, which this is the way the Pokemon fan base is. It's just some people are not going to be happy no matter what they do. And
Yeah.
I did I saw a lot of people saying, that it was so bad, this is the best thing a Pokemon company can
Well,
do,
I don't know if you saw, but there were some early builds of the game during the period of time where Game Freak was having some like major leaks, and on Twitter you could see some people would have a video of like a build of the game that they shouldn't have had their hands on. And the game was originally very well textured, a lot of depth to the buildings when they were focusing on making it for the Switch 2 hardware. And at some point in the development of this game, I don't know if it was Nintendo, Game Freak, it's unclear, but they were essentially, I believe they were given the ultimatum that they have to make it also for the Switch 1 for multiple audiences, kind of like what PlayStation is doing for the PS4 audience. Like, you don't want to lose customers on the PS4, but at some point you have to have a cutoff so the technology can advance. And I think we're going to have some issues coming up with, like, the PlayStation 6, where we're going to have maybe even games sold on 3 generations of hardware. And I think Nintendo's trying to find a way to navigate that. And, having this trade off with the graphics might be eye opening for some consumers who maybe want a better looking game that speaking with your wallet and purchasing a different version of the game might actually be better for the longevity of having more advanced graphics in your games.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they can continue to make money that
Right.
way, I mean,
Right.
it,
And consistency is also a major thing in that.
and on the gameplay, so we'll just get into
Yeah.
the game itself. So I felt like I think we both are of this mindset that the story was very good,
Yeah,
which
super good.
you and I both are big X and Y
Mhm.
fans, both the games and the show. So there was a lot there to work with, and I thought they did a really good job. I thought they did a really good job of, you know, honoring and calling back to the story of X and Y.
Yeah, really tastefully so too. It wasn't egregious. Like, there were characters from X and Y, but it was characters you wouldn't have expected to be in a different game.
Right, and it wasn't like, "Oh, we're just hitting that X and Y well to try to,
Right.
get some fan points or something." It was like, certain elements, like when you're in the hotel and, the music that's playing and everything is a callback to X and Y, and did a really good job of kind of stirring up those emotions and those memories that you have from the previous games. And I really liked the way that they handled uh, the stories for some of these characters. And there were some redemption arcs that didn't feel totally cheap, Um, and, I really liked the way they handled ZA's story and making him a big but not extremely focal point of the story. I thought I liked how they did that. We've obviously, I mean, I think both of us agree we liked a lot of the characters,
Yes.
the new characters even. I think we both really liked Lida.
Mhm. And she was, Tierno's sister?
Yes, that was the way I understood it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they ever really came out and said that.
She does the same dance as him, and I know it's probably like a trend kind of thing, like roller skating was in X and Y, or like maybe dancing is like the new fad in Lumiose. But like, it seems like I saw something where someone mentioned that there was a direct connection in a piece of dialogue, and I don't recall myself if I saw that or not. But
I do think I remember her mentioning her brother. I just don't think
gotcha,
she
that makes
used
sense.
his name, but I think it was clear that she's supposed to be his sister.
Yeah, and oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, who were some of the other new characters that you
Oh, man.
like?
Corbeau was one of my favorite characters. At first, I didn't really like him, the syndicate leader, the Rust Syndicate,
Same.
but he really grows on you. Like these characters, something that's really unique about this game that I haven't seen in a Pokemon game since actually Sword and Shield did this a bit, but they talk like real people talk. Like you have these really funny, intimate moments with the characters where they are having a conversation or they say something, and of course, there's no voice acting in this game. That's a gripe that I feel like most people do have with this kind of game. Like they are turning over a lot of profit on these games, and there's still no voice acting. But like, even without that, like it comes across so funny that I actually would laugh out loud at some things that some of the characters would say, or like some of the interactions they would have. Like when there's some parts of the game where they're sitting in the hotel and having like a meeting or eating dinner, and Naveen would like intervene and say something about the cooking, or like Lita would say something talking back to Naveen, and it would be really funny. There would be some really good quips, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job of you're like building
Yes.
relationships with the characters, and things are natural. Things are, you are making a connection with characters and stories, and even some of the side quests, there would end up
Oh,
being
yeah.
characters would come up later, or there would be something, powerful about a side quest that you didn't think there was going to be any,
Right.
emotional depth there. And it ends up being like, ooh, a gut punch, or, or people coming back into the game later. And I thought another thing, like you said about Corbeau, are elements of the game, times in the game where something surprises you. Like
Yes.
the Rust Syndicate just seems like they're going to be thugs. And then that's not really what happens. And there's things in the game that I thought they did a really good job of surprising you and not making it so obvious and not
Yeah.
making it feel lame or something like that, that sometimes in a Pokemon game or something where it's kid friendly, you're not going to want to do anything scary or, something like that. But I felt like they did a really good job.
Should we also give a brief synopsis on some of the events? Just
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, like we said, there's spoilers in this. If you haven't played it yet, you're
yes,
not going to want to
please
listen to this.
wait to watch this until you've played the game. But essentially, your character. This takes place 5 years after the events of X and Y. No one is roller skating anymore. You show up to Lumiose, not Lumiose. Yeah, Lumiose. I'm so sorry. Um, you show up to Lumiose station by train, and you're immediately greeted by Tawny at the very beginning. She's filming a promotional video for Hotel ZA for her group. There's this sort of like a battle tournament in town called the ZA Royale, and it's essentially put in place by this corporation. Remind me what the name is again, Nathan? I don't remember.
Oh, let me check.
Yeah, so this corporation essentially is over the development of Lumiose now. Since the events of X and Y have ended and Team Flare's kind of dissipated, and they did some pretty bad things and destroyed a lot of stuff. So they're out of here. So this group is trying to rebuild Lumiose Tower in like a nicer way, it looks like, and they're trying to develop the city. But in doing so, crystals are growing out of the ground everywhere, like mega crystals, and they're urging people to collect them and bring them to them for rewards. We find out that the Earth is fighting back against the development of the town, and so as Pokemon also start to enter the city, they've started creating these wild zones using the holo technology that this company has been creating. and this kind of corrals them and keeps them out of the streets from harming people because the Pokemon in this game are so extremely aggressive. You cannot get anywhere close without a Pidgey attacking you or something. Like it's crazy. But the Mega Stones are actually powering up Pokemon that are not intending to evolve. And so there's this rogue Mega evolution that's happening. And the purpose of this ZA Royale is to find the strongest Mega evolution trainer so that a character from the previous game, AZ, who created the weapon that destroyed most of the world during the Pokemon War 3,000 years ago, he has a Floette that can evolve, and he wants to find the strongest Mega Evolution trainer to control Floette to kind of put this problem to rest. So, in doing so, you come across Tawny, who is one of the other main protagonists in this game. She brings you to Hotel AZ, which is run by AZ, and he lets you stay there. You participate with the team, and they're trying to gain rank in the Royale. It's you, Tawny, Naveen, and Lita. And Lita likes dancing, Naveen likes sewing and making different clothing designs, and Tawny likes being super competitive and kind of annoying. And
Yeah, Tawny is one of we
Tawny's
were
the
talking about
worst.
characters. Tawny is a character that Will and I both really didn't like. And at first, I didn't find her annoying. I found her somewhat endearing at the
Yeah,
very first part of the game.
for
And
sure.
as the game goes on, she becomes insufferable, and in my opinion.
She
And
does
it's
not
just
learn from her mistakes. She constantly is trying to one up you, and when you do one up her, she doesn't accept that. She doesn't want to accept that, and it becomes a point of contention later on.
Tawny's entire character arc is basically telling you she's the leader of Team ZA and or Team AZ and saying that she's the best. And that's pretty much the character arc right there.
Yes.
And running off and not helping the team
Yeah.
when she's supposed to be helping the team.
One of the blunders includes at the beginning when she's filming the video, evidently she took money from a syndicate as a loan to do I don't know, to produce this video for some reason, and of course it got no views, so people aren't staying at the hotel. You're the only guest there. And so she has to pay back the syndicate, but she didn't tell anyone, so the syndicate comes up to you, Corbeau and his people, and they're like, "Hey, you guys owe us 1,000,000 yen," and we're like, "What? Why?" "Well, Tawny took out a loan with us, and it has to be paid back." So, things like that resolve themselves in the game as you play it, but you know, these problems come up and communication is never a focal point for anything Tawny's doing. She's always just off doing her own thing and leaving the problems to Team AZ or Team MZ. We've been saying it wrong this whole time. It's Team MZ. My apologies. There's a lot of acronyms in this game with Z in it. AZ is the character. ZA is the game. Is the Royale also?
Yeah, it becomes a problem. Like I
Yeah.
realized I called him ZA.
Yeah.
There's too many acronyms for sure in the game.
And it's not even just that, it's all of the acronyms involve the same it's a two-letter
Same
system with
letters,
Z
yeah.
somewhere in it, so we are in Team MZ, and, Naveen has created this logo that we put on everything. It's on this banner in the meeting room, it's on everyone's jackets, and essentially, we're trying to gain rank to get the Mega Evolution Stone for Floette. So that's
And so that's the general
whole idea.
synopsis of the game. And that's another aspect where we talked about characters and callbacks that I thought was a really good part of the game is so at the end of X and Y, ZA no, I'm doing it again, man. AZ AZ and Floette, he's been wandering the earth for 3,000 years wanting his Pokemon back. And you have this extremely heartfelt reunion between the two now that he's basically learned from his mistakes and been repentant for so long. And so they are reunited in this game. However, he's 3,000 years old. He can't really be a Pokemon trainer anymore because he is nearing the end of his life, which is a topic of this game. But he's not strong enough to do what you need to do to use Mega Floette. And so that is where a lot of this is coming in. And so I thought that was a good way to, I mean, it's not all just happy rainbows after the reunion. He's not the same man in a good way, but he's also not the same man as his capabilities are severely diminished. And that shows up throughout the game. And so, those are some of the characters, some of the synopsis we liked, did not like. As far as Pokemon in the game, I thought there's a fair amount of, we had a pretty fair selection of Pokemon to choose from
There's
in the
something
game
for everyone,
various generations.
for everyone, rather. So, who did you pick as your starter Pokemon?
Okay, so this was one thing in the game I didn't love was the selection of the starters. But I chose Totodile. Out of those three, Totodile is by far my favorite, and I like Feraligatr better than the other two fully evolved Pokemon. So I chose Totodile. Who did you choose?
I also chose Totodile. I
feel like most everybody probably chose
I think
Totodile.
I know one or two people who picked something else, but no one I know chose Chikorita. So everyone else chose Tepe. Like, yeah, the choices weren't great, and we saw from like some previous like leaks of the game that there was going to be a different selection of Pokemon, and at some point in the development, this did change as well. And we ended up with like a really just odd selection of Pokemon. I'm surprised that they picked 2 Gen 2 Pokemon to be in the same selection with a Gen 5 or something, instead of having like 3 different. I don't remember what all were the starters in Legends Arceus.
It was Rowlet and Oshawott and Cyndaquil. And then, of course,
so
they had
3
different forms.
Huge gaps in years of Pokemon. So I feel like that's a pretty solid selection. Having different Pokemon here is good. But like, I feel like maybe picking between Totodile and Chikorita would have been the play here.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a little weird to have 2 Gen 2 Pokemon. And I
Yeah.
mean, you can say whether you like this mechanic or don't like this mechanic in the Legends games, but it felt kind of weird to me you're like, okay, I'm in Lumiose City. The lab is here, but I'm not getting in. I don't even have the choice of any of the Kalos starters. Now, you do get an opportunity through quests
Side
to
quests.
get them later, and so that's a good way that you could get all 3 of them relatively early in the game.
I will also say those side quests are pretty difficult, especially I think it's the Froakie one. You have to do some pretty intense parkour with a strict time limit, 3 times to get the Froakie, and the Mega Evolutions for these are locked behind a competitive wall. Initially, you had to get to rank M or something? So, like, the rank
I
in
think it was
competitive rank K, so it's like rank Z going up to A, and there is no skill-based matchmaking. It's a 1v1v1v1 4-player just not team deathmatch, free-for-all, and everyone gets leveled up to 50 in this free-for-all, but it's so unbalanced, especially if you're early on in the game and, other regions get the game sooner than you. So you're just kind of like fighting to get. Froakie was the first one. And then after Froakie was finished, they decided for the next season they would let you get Froakie's stone at rank Z, and then at rank T or S, somewhere around there, you would get the next stone for the different Kalos starters. And they started making it rank S and rank T so people could get it. But still, it's just weird that it's behind that at all.
Yeah, that's something neither one of us liked. Neither one of us is a competitive Pokemon player. That's not why I play Pokemon. And so I definitely wanted to be able to get Greninja's Mega Evolution. So I did the competitive. I got to rank K and got it, but it wasn't as hard as what I expected it to be. There was a little bit of a learning curve with it, but I did not thoroughly enjoy that, and I haven't done it since, to be perfectly honest, because I didn't care enough to get the other mega evolutions to go through competitive.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
a
just
mess.
like you're in Kalos. You should be
Right.
able to have these new mega evolutions, which was another baffling thing why they didn't have mega evolutions to start with, but for these starter Pokemon. But
So far, I've done every single competitive, and it's just, it's still not great.
yeah. I mean, well, really the whole system is weird to me.
It's very
I don't really
spammy.
understand. Yeah, you're basically
We'll
just like
we'll talk about this more also in the battling too, but, like, yeah, like, you what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say you're basically like constantly switching out one of your 3 Pokemon, trying to not have a type disadvantage,
Yes.
and trying to get around behind someone unsuspecting, because if you get in this melee, if you let someone hit your Pokemon, you're out, basically.
Or if
And
someone grabs the Pokemon before you, they can just snipe your elimination, and if you don't get one elimination during it, you don't really get any points.
yeah, so basically what you're trying to do is get as many cheap eliminations as you can without, getting eliminated repeatedly. But like you said, we'll talk about the battle mechanics
Right.
here some more later. But I guess so while we're talking Pokemon in the game, who did you choose? Who were the members of your team in the game?
Okay, so from the start, I had Totodile for Alligator, and then in Zone 1, I chose a Mareep. I didn't so I evolved him eventually into Ampharos, and he stayed on my team the entire game, because he could learn, Ice Punch, Electric, Fang, whatever moves he had, I don't recall. But, I kept him the whole time. I didn't even evolve the shiny one, I just kept that same one. At first, I had the Gardevoir that you'd get the Ralts from the mystery gift, but I found that in this game, they really nerfed Gardevoir, kinda like they did with, Mega Blaziken from X and Y's mystery gift. Just because everyone got it, I guess they decided but in general, psychic Pokemon were just very weak in this game, I noticed. So, eventually, Gardevoir left my team. I didn't keep the Absol that they gave to me. What else did I have? I had Bunnelby at the start, to hold all my TMs and stuff, and then this game does a really good job about letting you switch moves out, so you don't really have to have one Pokemon focused on TMs. So, later on, I had was it Feraligatr, Ampharos, um, I'll have to think about this. I'll let you I'll let you go, and I'll think about the other ones, because it's been about a week or 2 since I finished the game, and there's a lot of swapping of Pokemon in the, DLC.
But yeah, the DLC are definitely a lot different Pokemon. This was a game that, and we'll talk about these two things together as far as the quality of life features of the game. I typically do not use more than 4 to 6 Pokemon in a game unless I'm just really trying to decide between different Pokemon that I want to use.
Yeah, same here.
However, in this game, I used way more Pokemon than I normally use. I couldn't even say I had a 6th team. There were certain Pokemon that I used the vast majority of the time, but and this is part of the quality of life improvements. It was so easy to just switch the
Mhm.
Pokemon that, I mean, you
And
could just
leveling them
do
up
it.
was like nothing. It was so
Yes.
nice.
So you were able to just continually rotate out different Pokemon. The primary Pokemon that I used, I kept Totodile just for Alligator on my team the whole time. It was one of the better Pokemon. Um, Early on, I had Ariados and Fletchender, Talonflame. However, they did not really stay on my team, and a big part of that is because a major element of this game is it's so focused on Mega Evolution that if a Pokemon can't Mega Evolve, if it does not have a Mega Evolution, there's very little incentive to keep it as a main part of your team. And so some of my other core team members, Houndoom was major for me, Charizard, who you can pick a Kanto starter later in the game, and I chose Charmander. Um, I used I used the Absol. You get a fair amount. I used a Gardevoir some. I used Greninja a fair amount. I used Aggron some. But really the main Pokemon for me throughout the game was there's an in-game trade for a Riolu. A Riolui, I believe, is the nickname he gave him. So you get the expedited experience points from a traded Pokemon. And I used Lucario as my main, pretty much the horse of my team throughout the whole game. One, because it was leveling up quicker, but because of the move pool and how easy it is to switch out moves for these Pokemon. Steel type has been so heavily emphasized the last few
Oh,
generations, in
yeah.
my opinion. I
Especially
mean,
in this one, it was insane.
I basically ran Aura Sphere, Flash Cannon, Extreme Speed, and Bulldoze um, with Lucario the whole game. And so Lucario was, and you have the Mega Evolution, obviously. So Lucario was the main Pokemon that I probably used. And there were others that I used and rotated out. And occasionally I would use an evolution, a Jolteon or Sylveon or whatever. But generally speaking, those were the members of the team that I used.
Yeah, also a postscript to that, the names of traded Pokemon from side quests in this game were awesome. Like, some of them were puns, some of them were really cute. I really liked how they did that. Like, they really kind of made it an in-universe sort of it made you feel like it was real, you know?
Yeah, dramatic improvement over like I mean, some of these other ones. Like right now, I'm actually playing through Soul Silver, and like if you get the Voltorb, its name is Billy. If you get Onyx, its name is Rocky, which I mean, I guess is funny, but and then in some of the older games like Fire Red, Leaf Green, you trade for one of those Nidoran. It's what Nido or Mr. Nido or
Yeah,
whatever, and
there's really
it's like
lame names,
the
but it's also
nicknames were
like
so
something a
bad.
kid would name it. It's like,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think that the nicknames in this game were a
yes.
lot better.
I have recalled some of my Pokemon that I had on my team, by the way. So I had Feraligatr, I had Ampharos, I had Garchomp, uh, Tyranitar. Sometimes I had Sylveon. Of course, I kicked Gardevoir off my team because Gardevoir was kind of weak sauce towards the end. I really wanted to have Umbreon, but there was a glitch in the game where you couldn't evolve it from simply getting XP at nighttime unless you used rare candy. And that was something that I experienced, so it kept me from getting Umbreon and Espeon until the very end of my Pokédex. They were the last two that I had to get. Um, I had Charizard as my fifth on the team. He was great for a lot of stuff that I had, and I think I used the Gardevoir or not Gardevoir. I used the Charizard X Stone. I had Pokemon Y when I was playing originally, but I love the design of the blue and black on Charizard, so I went with that this time regardless of the power up he had. And then my sixth slot went to Metagross when I finally got him towards the end of the game. There's like you were saying, a lot of poison types in this game, so steel types are immune to that. Having Metagross means that I wouldn't get just immediately poisoned without being able to heal, because there's a lot of cutscenes while opponents' Pokemon are doing things, and your Pokemon is getting damaged during those as well. They do not let up whatsoever on the poison. So Flash Cannon was great. There's a lot of distant things you had to do, and we'll talk about that in the battling later. And then towards the end of the game, I also put Yveltal on my team. So I swapped someone out here and there for that. So that was my main team I had going.
Yeah, I found in this game it was a little bit odd. Like I typically have a good type mixture, and in this game I felt like of course I was able to rotate out a lot, but and when you're doing some of these boss fights, you're going really heavy on certain typings. However, I was puzzled at the way my team kept being comprised was really heavy on dark and
Yes,
fire
for
type
sure.
Pokemon. And it was like those were what was available, those were what was pushed to you, those were what, were cool
You
and
had to
what
use
had
There were tons of
mega
ghost types you had to
evolutions.
fight against. The opponents were mostly ghost types, psychic, you know, grass type, like things that you would need dark type for. And that's mostly what you would get from like TMs and leveling up your Pokemon too. It was very heavily focused in this game.
Yeah, and so I didn't really feel like there were enough. Like electric was a typing that
Mhm.
I struggled to have a good electric type Pokemon.
Ampharos was crazy though. The reason I had Ampharos was Ampharos had such a variety of moves that I could have of different typings. I was able to have electric. I was able to have an ice move. He may have had a fire move. He definitely had a dark move like Crunch or Bite or something like that at some point. So there were a lot of Pokemon where you just have a variety of moves instead of just a focus.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I like about being able to swap out moves in this game. You're not just locked into one track for each Pokemon.
Yes, the swapping out moves, how easy it is, and the incentivizing of having a variety of different moves is very good, especially if you're like in a situation like I was. A lot of times I had 2 or 3 water Pokemon, 2 or 3 dark Pokemon, 2 or 3 fire type Pokemon. And so you're like, hey, I need a little bit of variety on the moves. And so that was a good feature. And so before we get too much into more of the battling mechanics, we've already started talking about that some a little bit, but let's talk about some of the moments in the game that had good connections to X and
Ooh,
Y, some of the characters. So
yes.
right off the bat, and I said something about this, I really liked the hotel, and you're staying in AZ's hotel with AZ and Floette. They're playing the music from X and Y. Like, I really liked those callbacks, and I felt like every time I was in the hotel lobby, I was being emotionally stirred a little bit from, the ending of X and Y. And so that was something, it was peaceful and a callback to that. And so I enjoyed that. What were some of your favorite connections to X and Y?
I think starting out, I really do like the composition of the music. Like when you first show up in Lumiose and it's playing the recontextualized arrangement of the Lumiose theme, it's very it almost like it's like returning to an old friend, like it's very quaint, very somber, and it's not as bright as it feels in X and Y. So you're immediately like faced with this like you have this curiosity of this new place, but it's also somewhere you're returning to. And I think they did a great job of capturing that feeling with the music. A lot of the callbacks with AZ were pretty good. One of my favorite parts of X and Y was the cutscene discussing the Pokemon War 3,000 years ago and firing the ultimate weapon. And they actually, at a certain point in this game, if you're already to this point, and we've given so many spoilers, but there's a basement to the Team Flare Cafe that you visited in the original game. You had to fight Lysandre at. And the Lysandre Labs is in the bottom of it. So you're exploring this abandoned Lysandre Labs, and that's where you get Beldum to get Metagross, and you're trying to get a key card. Um, and there's a computer you find at the end, and it's right beside the capsule where you would have found Xerneas or Yveltal in X and Y, and you watch essentially the truth that you, as your character, would not have known because you were not there 5 years ago, and it shows everything that Lysandre did. It talks about the firing of the ultimate weapon, but then they also do an extended version of that cutscene, adding more information we didn't get in X and Y, and it's in the same art style. They have this storybook kind of thing, and I really, really appreciated that attention to continuity, and I thought that was very intentional.
Yeah, I loved the Team Flare base going back to, and it's been worn, it's 5 years
Mhm.
of no one being down there really, and I like that they make callbacks to the kids in the original games, the kids who thwarted Lysander's plans, and
Yes,
you're like, "Hey, I know those kids." And,
the
there was just a
museum
lot of.
especially.
Yes, and there were a lot of emotional good connections, and I liked that this is you're getting a picture of, look, this is AZ is a guy who nearly destroyed the planet, nearly killed all life 3,000 years ago. And then Lysandre shows back up, the mystery character, and him dealing with what he has done, and a city dealing with nearly being destroyed 5 years ago. And so it's very interesting. And then like you said, in the museum, there's all kind of there's callbacks to Legends Arceus and different things in there that connect to other games without it being like over the top fan service or whatever.
It's
And
like
so,
history within the universe, and I like how
yes,
they treated it as such.
yes, and I thought everything was about those types of aspects were handled very well. And something we were saying earlier that goes into this, I found myself looking out past Lumiose, really wanting to know what would get to experience again what was out there and know what it would have looked like in this art style, and
We'll never
see.
get to see the power plant.
Yeah, and see what Kalos is like 5 years after this, because you're seeing what Lumiose is like 5 years after, but what's going on with the whole region? What's going on with those characters that you were involved with in the previous games? And so I thought those were some really good, and there's other callbacks, but I thought those were some of the really good callbacks.
I think two of the other major callbacks I really resonated with. Mabel, was she one of the admins for Lysandre?
Yes.
She is now the researcher in Sycamore's lab. Was it Sycamore from X and Y?
Yes.
Sycamore, yes. So she is actually in his office now doing research, and she got in trouble for being on Team Flare, and so she actually has to do research at this lab and cannot leave Lumia City. So I thought that was really cool, and her dialogue and stuff is super funny. We'll talk about some of the research she has later on in this review. But she's one of the main characters that they call back to. I liked another one that I really liked was Emma from X and Y. I was a big fan of the Looker Bureau and his escapades and you know Gen 4, 5, 6. He's always investigating the criminal organization in the game. And then, at some point he goes missing. And I think, I don't quote me on that, I don't remember this, but I think he fell through a portal or something in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. And we haven't seen him since. Like, he hasn't been there. So Emma was kind of taken in by him in X and Y. And she has become the lead detective at his agency. And has more of like a responsible role, and she's investigating things in the town, really looking after the city that kind of cast her aside in that game. So I think that's a really cool character growth off screen that we see too.
Yeah, it's really cool to see. And like Professor Sycamore is gone, Looker is gone, and you're seeing, the story move on without them. And I actually thought Emma was going to be a bigger part of
Yeah,
the
me too.
game.
It was like a red herring almost.
Yeah, they kind of drop her about not very long into the game, and I mean, she comes up every now and then, but she's a very small player in the game, in my opinion. And I thought they maybe could have done a little bit more with her. But now let's talk about, keep saying we're going to talk about it. Let's talk about the battling mechanics. So obviously there was a very heavy mega evolution focus in this game, especially in the boss battles, which I found to be fun, but they were also kind of tedious and repetitive. And again, like, if you're doing one of these boss battles with a rogue mega evolved Pokemon, there is no reason to bring a Pokemon that can't mega evolve, because it is going to
100%.
do so little damage. So if you like, one of the main criticisms I had of the game is I did like there are Fletchling all over the city. I did like some of the fan favorite Kalos Pokemon being there, but okay, you can't Mega Evolve Talonflame. It doesn't have a Mega Evolution in this game. So
I also
why?
dropped it from my team because of that
Yes.
specifically.
Yeah, and so it was like, why would I not use Charizard over Talonflame? Or, especially in my situation, because I was using Houndoom as well, is like Talonflame can't Mega Evolve. It can't help me in these rogue battles. So I thought that was I thought more Kalos Pokemon, especially fan favorites like that, should have got Mega Evolutions, and
I
I thought
agree.
there should have been
EVs, especially, I thought should
yes, the
have.
Eevee
It's
evolutions.
bizarre.
Like,
No EV Mega Evolutions. There's
yeah.
duplicate Mega Evolutions for things like Absol in this game, but nothing for EV.
So those were some very questionable decisions, but they did want to push you into using Mega Evolution in the game being about Mega Evolution. So that was cool, but I wish they had if you were going to create more Mega Evolutions, I wish you had created more for some of these other Pokemon. So I guess the main thing to talk about is this is obviously not the battle style of turn-based most Pokemon games, nor is it really the battle style of Legends Arceus. So, what things did you like about the battle style, if anything, and what did you not like about it?
So I have probably more qualms with this than I have positives. I think this kind of battle style would be excellent if they did another Coliseum game. I think keeping this and maybe even a Legends game, polish it up a little bit. This is a great direction to go in, but every time they add new features like this, it feels like they're not fully realized or they're part of a feature from a previous game where it was fully realized and they've just stripped it of something that gave it more pizzazz. I like that it's active time. I think that's really cool. It makes the game feel more upbeat and alive, but the game focuses so heavily on it that it feels redundant. Your Pokemon aren't very responsive, buttons aren't responsive. You'll send out a Pokemon and they have to roar every single time they come in a Pokeball,
Yeah,
and you
it's a
can get
major
attacked
problem.
during that. However, your opponents, they just have a cutscene. You cannot attack them while they're roaring. So it's a really weird, like cheap thing the game does for art. There's a lot of artificial difficulty at this game created by things like that. When you're sneaking up on opponents in battles, sometimes you'll use a move, and then midway through the move, the other Pokemon evidently catches you off guard and it stops you from using the move. They attack you, and then you have to restart your attack animation, and that can be a little frustrating, especially when it happens over and over and over again, because there is a massive focus on battling in this game. I think the biggest problem I have is that battling and catching are separated in such an intense manner that it almost it almost makes it feel more bland because you're stripping away the blend of the two. I don't know how you felt about this.
I mean, I think in talks we've had, I liked the battling style better than you did. I especially the first few hours of the game. Obviously, there was a learning curve, but at first, I was like, "Oh wow, this is very different. I like this and everything." And I want to say that by and large, I like it. I would like to see it again in another game. I am glad that they decided to take this bold step, and I saw good things about it. However, like you said, it was very much like something's missing here. Some things
Feels
were
very
not.
polished. Like
Yes,
this could be great, but it's like there's something keeping it from
it's not there yet, and it's not fully executed well.
right.
And like, here's an example of what I liked versus what I didn't like. Okay, I liked this a lot better than Legends Arceus batting style. I did the whole what was it? Aggressive stance,
Yeah, that
defensive
was.
stance, whatever. I hated that. I hated all of
I
the battle
rarely
mechanics,
battled
and
unless I had to in that game.
yes. And then, like, at the end of the game, your whole boss battle, you got to battle like 3 times in a row, and you've got terrible battle mechanics. So I thought it was an improvement over that. And there were times where it was fun, and you could use some kind of different strategy rather than it just being turn based, who's going first, type of
Yeah.
thing. But like you said, the inputs were not responsive enough. I did not like the whole moving the cursor thing where the Pokemon is running over to where
Yes.
the attack point is instead of
Sometimes it would
attacking.
stand still, rotate 90 degrees, wait a few seconds, and then it might attack. Sometimes it won't even attack, or it'll run behind a tree that you didn't tell it to go to and attack the tree instead of the Pokemon. Then you have to wait for the move to charge back up to use it again.
Yeah, and so you're trying to hurry up an attack, and your Pokemon's running around and running to a different point and attacking. And so that was a major problem I had with it. Another aspect of the battling that I did not like in typical mainline Pokemon games, turn based Pokemon games, speed is extremely important. And if you take, for example, X and Y, okay, everybody loves Greninja. I use Greninja in both X and Y. What's great about Greninja is the speed. And so, like a lot of glass cannons, like Jolteon, what you're trying to do is you're hitting the other person's Pokemon before they can hit you. And you're trying to take them out, basically, especially if you're using something with high special attack power or something like that. In this game, Gardevoir is another example in this game. If you are using a light, not very defensive Pokemon that has high speed, sorry about your luck, because it is so disincentivized to have a small, fast Pokemon in this game because you're going to get hit, period. There is no knocking the other person's Pokemon out and never getting hit. Your Pokemon is going to get hit. And if they
Yes.
have low defense, they're almost certainly going to be knocked out. So I used Greninja a lot early in the game, and I finally just ended up kind of dropping it because it was just getting knocked out a lot because it's not responsive enough to where you're moving it to take advantage of the speed. See, the way this battle mechanic should have worked is you have a Pokemon literally modeled after a ninja. You should be able to dodge these attacks.
Oh,
But
dodge. That was the first thing I was asking everyone about this. I was like, where is dodge at? Well, you can use protect. Well, yeah, if you use protect, you have to use it at the exact right moment. If you don't use it in time for your Pokemon to wind up and use it, then it's useless. If you do use it, you're still getting hit and hurt from it. If you use it too soon, it lasts for 0.2 milliseconds and then your Pokemon gets hit anyways. It's not very effective for anything, and even running away and having your Pokemon follow you or putting your Pokemon away isn't too effective because you're going to get hit and then you have to restart the battle. It's like,
yeah, there's just a lot of things about it where it's like, okay, do you want this to be a dynamic battle like in the anime style or whatever, or don't you? And so I thought there were some things that were good about it. I enjoyed it, but there was also, especially as you do it over and over, it gets tedious and you feel like, okay, this doesn't really work the way that it's supposed to work. And you are, like I said, smaller, quicker Pokemon are very disincentivized. And the sneaking thing, I have to say something about the sneaking thing. This is made me more angry than just about anything in a Pokemon game I've ever played. So I don't think we really discussed this, but when you're doing the Royale and you're trying to move up the rankings, um, one of the primary mechanics is that you need to sneak up on the other person. If you sneak up on them and attack their Pokemon before they see you, you catch them off guard and that causes them to freeze, hesitate. That is very helpful. However, if they attack you when it deems that you are not ready, which is kind of an arbitrary, weird mechanic in and of itself.
sometimes it'll be if the trainer sees you or your Pokemon. Sometimes it'll be if their Pokemon sees you or the Pokemon. It doesn't seem like it's very consistent.
Like you can be clearly walking towards them ready to battle and it'll be like, you were caught off guard. So you can sneak up on this person, crouch, sneak up, be hidden, launch and attack. Say you use flamethrower. The flames can be inches from the Pokemon's face and it will say, you were caught off guard. And then you're frozen and they're attacking you. And I'm like, and every time I'm like, I was not caught off guard. I was attacking them. I had already launched an attack. So that is very frustrating.
And it's especially difficult because most of the time when you're fighting these trainers, you're on a time crunch. You have these quests to get the tickets at nighttime in these battle zones. So you're trying to fight as many trainers as possible, trying to use as many sneak ups as possible to get the most points. And there's these alleyways, and they're walking up and down them with minimal cover to no cover whatsoever. And this is a gripe I have for the actual Pokemon too. Like there's few bushes that actually count as cover in the game, and the ones that do, they can still see you through them, even if you're sneaking. So it's just very arbitrary what the game considers sneaking or not. And Legends, was it Legends ZA that allowed you, or not Legends ZA, Legends Arceus that let you go back into the bush and eventually lose alert? Yeah, that's gone. They just decided whatever mechanic they had in that game is just out the window. And I think they had it down pretty tightly in that game. And they carried that over to Scarlet and Violet, and I think it worked in both of those games just fine, and I don't really know what the disconnect is.
Yeah, in this game, you're pretty much, like you said, there's so little cover and the sneaking doesn't work very well. You're getting seen most of the time. Someone's going to see you and they're going to chase you to the ends of the earth. It's not as aggressive as Legends Arceus.
Well,
That was really hard, but
only because there's holotech to protect you from, like, if you
yeah,
leave a
and you can
wild
get
zone,
out
they
of the
will
wild
stare
zone.
you down until you come back, unless you fly away.
We'll talk about wild zones more here in a minute, but there are certain wild zones that you go in, especially if you're early in the game and you don't have really strong Pokemon yet, that it is like a death wish.
Yes.
And you're
Yes.
you're
It's
getting
like, did
hit from all
anyone play this
sides.
game before they
It's
put it on
hard to
shelves?
catch the Pokemon while it's going on. So we'll talk about catching, unless
Right,
you had
right.
anything else you wanted to say about battling.
No, I think we covered everything. We talked about competitive earlier. I will say, before we talk about catching, I want to loop back to some of the gameplay again. This is a very, very long game. And I think part of that, has to do with the battling mechanic. Like, you have to do these ZA Royale tickets. So, and the way the game works, every night the game forces you into a cutscene, and then on the map there will be a battle zone, similar in fashion to the wild zones where the Pokemon are, but it'll be full of trainers that you have to fight, and you'll have a amount of points you have to get from fighting them. And sometimes you have to fight 20, 25 people. Sometimes it's 12. The further in the game you get, the more you'll get used to it. But this takes a long time, and by the time I finished with this game, I think I was at probably like 80 hours before I got to the DLC. And
Really?
I did every single side quest. I did the entire Pokédex. And towards the end of the game, to get the final side quests in the game, you have to do, I think it was 5 Royale tickets, and a ticket is getting the entire battle zone thing completed. And you have to fly between them a bunch too, because they'll just like run out of trainers, or like they won't respawn. And then you can get the ticket to fight the actual main event trainer that you're fighting. So there's 5, 10, 15, 20 to get to the last side quest in the game, and then the last side quest is fighting the same person. I think it was like 5 times in a row, and their Pokemon do not change whatsoever. So a lot of things contribute to that, a lot of redundancies, and I think the battling system is mostly to blame for that. And it just made the battling system get old really fast. But yeah, we'll get into catching now, because this is we could go on for a while about the redundancies in this game.
So on the catching, like you said, the sneaking up wasn't great. Like, have fun trying to sneak up on a Pokemon. I thought it was relatively easy to catch Pokemon in this game. I
Yeah.
appreciated that. I enjoyed that, and getting Pokeballs is very easy. And if you lose a Pokeball by missing, you can get that from someone at the Pokemon Center. So as far as is this game, user friendly quality of life, that is very high in the game. Very positive as far as making it easy on you in ways that maybe previous games wouldn't have been. However, there were some problems. Like, we were talking about this the other day. Say you want to catch Dratini, and there's a Dratini on a rooftop. Dratini's probably going to see you. Even if it doesn't, and you throw a Pokeball at it, it's probably coming out of the Pokeball, and then it's going to immediately disappear. And there's a lot of that in the game. A lot of Pokemon that disappear or that get
Or you
angry.
catch it, or
And
you
if
don't catch it at all. Like, it's
yes, And
especially
if a Pokemon gets angry, you cannot catch it until it isn't angry anymore.
yes, and
And
not being
if
able to hide really makes that difficult.
you knock the Pokemon out, it'll be there for a second, but there's no guarantee that you can catch it then. And so if you knock it out, throw a Pokeball, it doesn't stay in the Pokemon's gone. And
Or if
so,
Pokemon swarm around it, you can run out of time by hitting those other Pokemon instead of the one you're intending to catch, and then that Pokemon that you're trying to catch disappears while you're trying to catch it. And I ran into that a lot because the wild zones were filled to the brim with Pokemon that are just all after you all the time.
yeah, like when I'm in the wild zone, I don't remember which number it is, the one that has Kangaskhan and Clefairy and some of these other
Yes, that is
Pokemon.
Wild Zone 19.
You are basically catching Kangaskhan just to get them off of your back and to get them out of your way while you're trying to catch another Pokemon for some type of mission or whatever.
Right.
And I think anybody who's played this game probably knows this by now. If you are going in Wild Zone 17, make sure you are right with your maker because Wild Zone 17 is instant death. Usually, like I had to flee out of Wild Zone 17 so many times because of all the Pyroar and, an alpha
And
Pyroar is just
dude, there's
about
a
to kill
ladder
you.
to climb on the roof in that area. And if you climb that ladder, Pyroar can still attack you with a ground attack while you're climbing the ladder or while you're on top of the building out of their view. It is insane. Like
That's something the range of these
oh my
attacks don't
goodness.
really make sense. You're just
Only
being
for
hit
wild
from
Pokemon. Only
wherever
for
it
wild
is.
Pokemon.
There's another okay, so one of the zones I really didn't like, I don't want to skip this one, was 4, where
For
the cemetery
yeah, the
is.
ghosts.
You cannot go in there without a plague of Ghastly and Ekans trying to take your life and leave you in that
Dude,
cemetery.
Wild Zone 8 was also a danger zone. That was the one with the Gabite.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's in a circle, and then Drillburs are constantly
Yeah.
emitting themselves from the ground at you, and they're in the same shape hole as Gabite, and Gabite's like one in like Gibble. Sorry, yeah, Gabite's the middle one. Gibble is like a 1 in maybe like 15 or 20 chance, right? For some reason. Well, when I first went in there, it was everywhere, but then when I was trying to catch it, then it was like really hard to catch. So I'm like running around this area.
What you're trying to do most of the time in that zone, you're like, oh, I want to try to catch a Gibble. And it's just like the Drillbur are everywhere. The Machop are
They're
everywhere.
waddling behind you.
You're like running
rate.
the whole time trying to find a Gibble. And I thought early in the game, it wasn't really a big problem later in the game, but early in the game, Wild Zone 6, where the Houndour and Houndoom, Alpha Houndoom
Yes.
is. When your Pokemon are not leveled up very high and you're getting mugged by Houndour and an Alpha Houndoom, that's a lot. There's a lot going on there.
And I had an issue with the catching a specific Pokemon in almost every grouping of wild zones. Like in the gameplay loop, you would have like a set of wild areas pop up after a story mission, and I would immediately try to catch everything and then get the Pokédex filled out as quickly as I can. There would always be one Pokemon that would be at night or a rare spawn, and it would take me probably 30 or more minutes to try to get this Pokemon because you have to fly away and fly back. You have to wait until the next day because if you knock out a Pokemon, it won't respawn until the next day in that spawn queue, I guess you could say. So there were a lot of things like even outside of the wild zones, Eevee only spawns in weird places, like on a rooftop over by what wild zone was it? It was one with like I think it was 15, the one with the Pumpkaboos and Haunters and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's one specific rooftop where and it's like fenced in.
Yeah.
And you have to go through the
like,
obstacle
go up
course
an obstacle course
and hope that it's there. Now, where I usually caught them, and I don't have the map pulled up right now, but where I usually caught the Eevees was there's basically a little park with lots of the crystals, and there's people just sitting on benches, and it's part of the drainage system is all around. And so you kind of go behind, like you go down an alley and then go behind this retaining wall, this cinder block wall that's like hiding the park. And then you go in there, and typically I would find Eevee in there. But then, even then, Eevee is not always that easy to catch. Sometimes they get in the water, you know? So Eevee was not super easy to obtain. Once I found that it spawned in that park pretty often, I ended up catching quite a few of them. But like we said, the use of Eevee is a little
Yeah,
not great in this game
fell
because you
flat.
can't Mega Evolve. I did use Sylveon and Jolteon some. Sylveon's very helpful in your, um there's different times where you're gonna battle Zygarde, there's different times where you'll battle a Dragon-type trainer or something, so I found Sylveon to be helpful there, but
I want to
by and
jump
large,
back
you're
to
not
the
really using him.
Zygarde fight towards the end because there was something really funny that I did.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the in the Zygarde fight, because he is a dragon and ground type,
Yeah.
I decided to go because I remember Yveltal being like super good against him because he's, dark and flying, and he has Oblivion Wing, which heals you. So I was just keeping my distance from Zygarde and just spamming him with like Oblivion Wing, keeping myself healed. He couldn't hit me with the ground attacks, and then he was weak against um several of the things I had. So I found that to be probably the easiest way to beat him, but that was a really tough boss fight. Otherwise, I don't without cheesing it, I don't really know what you would do.
Yeah, I found that to be one of the hardest boss fights, and not to get through the first 2 layers of it, but the 3rd layer.
Yeah, the third layer.
So, what I thought was, okay, he's dragging the ground.
Right.
I'll use a Glaceon, and typically, I love Glaceon. I've had a lot of success with Glaceon, particularly in Scarlet and Violet, but when I used Glaceon in this game, it was just
He's
like
a chump.
just not doing anything.
Yeah.
And so I was finding for some reason it was like ice type Pokemon, which there's not a ton of in this game, especially that you would want to be that high leveled. But
And if they are, it's like a very weird mix. Like you'd have something like is it Carbink or whatever, or like Gallade, like the like a ghost and ice. Like you have these just like odd mixes, or like steel. I don't know. I'm thinking of
there's
something
just,
else.
well, and that's part of the thing
There's
with
just not a
Pokemon doesn't
lot.
have a lot
No
of ice
variety.
types anyway. But so what I primarily did when I fought Zygarde was the first 2 layers of the fight, I was primarily using Sylveon, and Sylveon's, got Draining Kiss, you've got Moonblast, you can use things like Light Screen and Reflect. So I was basically just taking the first 2 layers with Sylveon, and then in the 3rd layer, the Pokemon that I was actually found to be the most helpful for me was Clefable, which
Oh
is
yeah.
weird because I don't honestly don't think I've ever used Clefable
Clefable
before
was a
in a
tank
game.
in this game. Anytime I had to
This
fight one.
Clefable is very good in this game, and so you could Mega Evolve obviously in this game, and that's I used that, and I would use Gardevoir and use Reflect and Light Screen, and that's
Light
pretty well how
screen,
I did
I
it.
I always made sure at least one Pokemon I had light screen. Even if they were going to die or something, I would pop light screen, have protect on every Pokemon in case I needed to use it, and then I'd have an extra line of defense, and that's really important in this game because everyone just getting one shot constantly. I also had to cheese that fight against the flower underneath the Lumiose tower at the end. Don't do that right. You get sent back an hour and a half of gameplay because you can run out of potions.
That was an interesting fight to me in some ways. Okay, so when I was doing that fight
Yeah.
with the flowers, what I found was it was odd. It was like certain Pokemon were positioned better than others. I mean, literally, I'm talking
Yes.
about like based on height,
Yeah,
based
because
on
you
where
had to
they're
be behind that
standing,
piece of rubble. If you weren't behind that piece
and
of rubble, they would get killed, so I kept having to retract my Pokemon while the
yes,
other thing was one-shotting them.
there's a lot of calling your Pokemon back in that fight. You definitely don't want to leave them out there.
Mm-mm.
But I would have Pokemon that's like same typing, same attacks and stuff, and one would be significantly better than the other just based off of where it was standing or
That is
so for me
interesting.
in that fight I rode Houndoom to a dub right there. Houndoom bailed me out so much in that fight.
That's
Now,
awesome.
like Charizard, I was having a really hard time when I was using Charizard. But so you would
Yeah,
think
Charizard
they're
was
both
getting his
using
butt kicked.
flamethrower, but no, Houndoom was the GOAT on that. And the other Pokemon I probably used a lot on that was Lucario, but yeah, Houndoom was awesome in this game. I love Houndoom. That again, the only problem with that was he's a little bit lighter, faster type Pokemon, so that was a little bit of an issue
Right.
in the game. But yeah, it was certain, and you could kind of say that about a lot of the boss fights where you're fighting rogue mega evolved Pokemon. Depending on what their attacks were, depending on how they were, how those attacks manifested themselves, different Pokemon might be better just based off of responding to what's around you, which is actually a pretty cool dynamic feature as though it were a real fight.
Mhm.
However, like you said, there are definitely moves where it's like your Pokemon's getting one shot if you don't call that Pokemon back, especially against like Zygarde. So
Right.
you had to be ready to call your Pokemon back. And there were times in boss fights where I knew if I stopped and called my Pokemon back, I would probably get hit, but that I would rather do that than my Pokemon get taken out. One thing I will say about this game in a lot of the battles, it is very easy to stop and heal Pokemon in
Yes,
this game,
for sure.
and you're not having to take a turn like in a turn-based game healing, and then you're
But you
going to
do
get
have a
hit
time
twice.
period, which is the
Yes,
odd, or it's not odd. It does keep you from spam healing, but like,
it like a recovery
yeah.
feature of
And you will use items in this game. You like
oh, yeah.
I usually hold on to my items. You will be using them. They throw money and items at you. You'll be picking up hyper potions in the street. Like it's very friendly in the regard that you will always have enough items, and if you don't, then you can get them from rewarding yourself with money.
And that's one thing, like, you might see early in this game and say, "Oh, I could never buy that Mega Stone from
Right.
the Stone Emporium or whatever." It does not take you very long to get
No.
it. I
By the
like
end
you
of
were
the
talking
game,
about,
if you do every side quest, you will have like 4 million or 8 million at the end of the game after you get all the mega stones. Like easily you will.
like you were saying about Mega Charizard,
Right.
relatively early in the game, I had both Mega Stones for Charizard and just swapped them out depending on what the type advantage I
Mhm.
wanted in that fight. And like, if you had told me that in a normal Pokemon game, that I just early in the game would be like, yeah, let me buy all these Mega
Right.
Stones,
I
like,
liked hunting
so
them
that
down
was,
in X and Y, and I really think that they did a really good job of making it feel that way without having to look for them.
yeah, because you could easily miss them in X
Yes.
or not be able to get to them
Yeah,
or
like
something in
very
X and Y.
specific ways of getting to them. And even the crystals, like there's another currency of the mega crystals that you break around the city to give to the Quasicordo. I remember the name, company, and they'll exchange them for stones, and that's a bit more of a grind, but it isn't as big of a problem when you get to DLC because they throw the stones at you. But initially, I noticed this in the game is you could only have 999 at a time, and so I didn't know this. Nothing tells you that at first, and it just starts deleting them after you get 999. They've recently fixed this. It's now 9,999. So for new players, it's fine, but for people who were playing the game originally, if you didn't buy Mega Stones as you were playing, you're kind of out of luck with the ones you lost. But they do respawn in the town, albeit less so after the game's completed because of story related events.
Well, and while we're talking about purchasing items, this is
Mhm.
something I meant to discuss earlier and I skipped over it, but um, customization in this game and item purchase. So item purchasing is pretty easy. However, customization on this game I felt was a little bit lacking.
Yeah, it
And
was
a
really
big
strange.
big part of that is if you are a male character, if you're playing as male, virtually every article of clothing in the game is for female characters. And like, unless you want to be a guy character wearing a skirt, like there's just not a lot there, everything's pretty feminine, and I understand that this game is supposed to be Paris. There's a lot of fashion and that type of thing, but there's not a lot of fashion for guys
It's mostly like
until
suit and tie and like very formal wear if you have the male
yeah.
clothing, or like very like odd articles of like exotically um like patterned clothing, I guess, that don't really match with things.
Yeah, it was very much like you're a GQ celebrity, some of the weird things that you see singers and actors wear and stuff. It was like that kind of deal. And there's just very few choices for male characters. And I ended up most of the game, there's a part of the game where you're instructed to buy luxury clothing for an event.
I
And
didn't wear that.
yeah, you don't have to. I ended up doing it because what I decided I liked best out of everything I wore the whole game is I was wearing like this greenish, bluish, um, detective trench coat and like a black sweater and white dress pants and dress shoes. And if you had told me that's what I was going to be
That's
wearing in a Pokemon
crazy.
game, I would have been like, are you insane? But no, like that's what I wore most of the game because I was like, there's so few. I don't want to wear a women's jacket,
Yes,
It's
you
just like
do.
there was so little for me to customize there. I did kind of like there were a lot of features with hair and eyes that I thought were cool, but clothing not so much.
What I also think kind of held it back was there were many stores in the game, many clothing stores, all looked exactly the same, all had different
Yeah, you
items, and you
couldn't
had to
tell what
click into
store.
them to see what they had. You couldn't walk into them, so it kind of took that liveliness away from it, even though people were in like a mall that had these stores. It had like a hologram that had just inaccurate data on the window showing what clothes they had at each store. And having to go all over the city to find certain things or not knowing what places had what, you couldn't really coordinate any of that very well for your outfits. And I think that was kind of lame.
Yeah, you don't it was really hard for me to remember like there was no memorable, oh, this store is here, It's
Yeah.
just there's a lot of like not knowing where things are and running
Yes.
around um and that was one thing. The map is largely easy to navigate and there's a lot of fast travel but there's also a lot of times where I felt like, I'm tired of being told to go back to the hotel and having to manually do it by myself, or I'm tired of being forced to go here, or, it just, there was a lot of you're constantly pulling up the map and trying to fly somewhere closer because it gets old trying to run and scale buildings, which I
Yeah,
like the
like
scaling buildings, but you use fast travel a lot in this game.
I've been playing Persona 5 lately, and whenever you go into like the dungeons in the game, the palaces, whenever you finish a certain area of the palace and you don't have to walk all the way back out or navigate using the map or whatever, it asks, would you like to go to the beginning of this palace so you can leave? Yes. And so I don't know, it'd be nice in this game. Would you like to go to Hotel AZ or whatever to continue the story? Yeah, let's do that. Even if they had like a character mention or something, just some way to expedite that process. Because it's a map game. There's a lot of just clicking in the map. You're probably in the map a quarter of your gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, that's not an exaggeration. You probably are. And I mean, I did like a lot of the menus and things that they
Hmm.
had in this game being very user friendly.
Yeah.
But there were also some things there was something I wanted to talk about that I remember feeling like it was complicated, but I don't
Was it the
remember.
side quest getting to those if you didn't mark them immediately?
Yo, that was not what I was thinking of, but yes, there was a early in the game, like I did a side quest or was trying to do a side quest and did not tell it to track it,
I had to look
and
in my
I
settings to find the
could
keybind
not
for that. You
find
had to
it.
go to the map
I
and hit a
could not
certain
find it.
button, but I couldn't figure out where it was.
And so there were some things like that in the game that were less than optimum, but I mean, I feel like all I've been doing is criticizing the game. By and large, I loved the game,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I
It's
think
just
it's
had
fair
some.
to mention things that are shortcoming of it because, like, we have mentioned there are a lot of great things with this game, but the things holding it back, I feel like it's only fair to mention those as well, you know?
One thing I'll say about this game, and I've felt this way about a lot of Pokemon games, but when I was first playing this game, I mean, I was staying up till 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning playing. I have a job, and like I would be staying up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning playing the game. I loved the game, and it felt new. It felt different.
Yeah,
It felt, I'm on an adventure and I'm really doing something with my Pokemon and bonding with the Pokemon. I love that the Pokemon can be out of the Pokeball with you and running around. And I thought that some of the features were not as great as what they were made out to be, as far as like sitting at the cafes with them or going to the parks. You couldn't really do anything
I
with the
really wish
Pokemon.
that that was like the Pokeyami from X and Y where you could raise their stats and, like, play with them and, like, do a picture mode and stuff.
I even thought the camping feature in Sword and Shield,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the picnic feature in Scarlet and
The
Violet, allows
sandwich
you to.
feature. It's a
Yeah,
very
insane.
sandwich
Yeah,
centric game.
you got to interact more with your Pokemon in those.
Play a
Then yeah,
sandwich
apparently
like
people in Spain in the
they
Mediterranean do eat a lot
love
of
sub
sandwiches
sandwiches.
because I did not know that was
Yes,
part of
sir.
their culture, sandwiches.
Subway, they love
But
uh, like a Jimmy John's, good hoagie.
but so I would have liked to had a little more interaction with the Pokemon, but I liked them being able to get out of the Pokeball, and that
Yeah,
type of thing was very good. Um, you and me are both players where we try to protect our Pokemon all
yeah.
the time.
I don't like my Pokemon dying. It makes me
I
sad.
never want my Pokemon to faint. I like systems in games, Pokemon games, that incentivize that. Like, I know Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl got a lot of flack. I will disclose this. I had not played the Gen 4 games, and I won't go into a
Gasp.
long discussion, before Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl came out. So my first time playing through Gen 4 was the remakes, which I know most people hated. I loved them. And one of the features that was in that game, and it was in some of the other games that I really liked, was the friendship mechanic of, if you don't let your Pokemon get knocked out, the Pokemon battles harder for you. The Pokemon won't get knocked out. It will hang on
I
with
love
one
that.
hit point. It will dodge attacks. It will push through poison,
It
all
held
these kind
out
of
so
things.
you wouldn't cry or
Yes.
whatever.
And it builds a better relationship with your Pokemon, and it's incentivized. It helps you. The player who doesn't just toss their Pokemon out there like cannon fodder and actually treats their Pokemon with love and respect for this
Nah, this
food,
game
you
hates
know,
Pokemon.
it you are rewarded for that.
Everyone's feigning left and right. It is a
And I
war
want
zone in
more of that.
Lumiose now.
And in Lumiose, you don't have that. It is,
No.
your Pokemon are getting knocked out. You are going to lose. Even your strongest Pokemon is going to get knocked out a few times in this
And
game.
if you ever do the battle cafes, good luck to you.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I was trying to
Some
do
of
the
the battle
side quests
cafes,
as I went, not the play.
some of the battle cafes are absolutely brutal. And like,
Yeah.
what was the one, like 7 trainers in a row? You can't
Not
use
10.
any
There's 10. 10 trainers
10,
in a
10.
row. And can't use any healing items. The first one poisons Pokemon, so you have
Very
to have a
first
steel
one.
type. Towards the end of them, one just has all dragon type Pokemon, and then one has a Mega Evolved Pokemon. You have to make it through all 10 of them. They're all like level, like, what, 70 or something? 80? Like,
And
they're
that was
high
the
level.
one that was really hard, because so many times you would get a Pokemon poisoned
Yes.
to start with. And you, like you said, you start with poison, but
Mhm.
it's not just the first trainer. There
Right.
are other trainers who can do that. And so
You have to play multiple times to even know what they have. And,
yes.
because you get one shot immediately, at certain times, I almost had to write down what order I needed to throw things out because there were so many in a row. And
It is very much
crazy.
taking multiple stabs at it and figuring out what you like. The first 6 Pokemon you take in there are probably not going to be the right 6
Right.
Pokemon.
And I wouldn't have a
And
problem with it if it wasn't such a time sink. Like, I'm spending 30 minutes every time,
yeah.
wasting that time, adding to that in-game clock that we talked
And like,
about.
why am I not allowed to heal my Pokemon? Why
Right.
are my Pokemon not
and then they'll
being
act
replenished.
super arrogant if they beat
Yes.
you, and they're the first one to fight you, or what am I trying to say? They fought you for the first time during that battle. It's like, well, I've fought
I've
4
battled
trainers before
9
you.
trainers. So yeah, that was
that
an
other one
element.
where they send 3 out at a time, and you only get 1 Pokemon out at a time, and you have to fight all 3 of them, and sometimes it's like 3 different typings, like Flareon, Jolteon, Vaporeon, all at the same time you're fighting them. And so you have to like decide what order to hit them in, because like you can get burnt, frozen, paralyzed in the same battle, and they're making you fight not just the one set of 3, but I think it was like 6 of them in a row. No healing. So like, yeah, it becomes an issue.
One of the hardest fights for me was, okay, so when you're doing the first fight
Yeah.
against, and I'm drawing a blank on the name, but you are at the fighting dojo and you are fighting the big, tall
What's his name?
guy.
What's his name? Was it Ivor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're fighting him, you are thinking, okay, he has fighting type Pokemon.
Yes.
What do you use against fighting type Pokemon? Well, you can use Psychic, you can use Fairy, you can use Flying. If you are using flying type Pokemon in that battle, get ready, because virtually every single one of his Pokemon has strong rock type moves. And when I stepped into that battle, that was the first battle of the game that I lost on my first attempt. And I was just like, I had like Charizard out there and Talonflame or whatever. And okay, well, that's 4 times weak against rock, and like all the Pokemon have rock type moves. And then I think he had some of his other Pokemon had strong moves against Psychic too.
Yeah.
And so I found that to be really difficult, which I'm fine with some of them being difficult, but it's just like unexpected, where you go into the battle having no clue that that's what you're about to get hit with.
Yeah, and I really do think, kind of in the same vein, there's a lot of very unique characters that I think are really funny in this game. Like, Ivor's sister, Gwen, has a very different theme, like the ghost type Pokemon. You really only fight her like once or twice, or Laban you fight like once. And these characters they all are like just bleeding with character to them, the personality. But they choose like several of them, like the Canary. I think you fight her like 5 or 6 times during the game, and it's her team doesn't really change that much. Or like Jasant, you have to fight her. She's at the bonus side quest if you fight 20 ZA infinites, and she just has the same team that you fought originally, and then you have to fight her 5 times in a row with the same team. And it's like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, that just feels silly,
Yeah, it's like a time sink.
Like Legends Arceus, I brought it up earlier.
Yeah.
In that last battle, why am I doing three battles, in one battle? And like that doesn't, I mean, that's not really that fun, especially if the team doesn't change it, like you said. And you fight Canari's grandfather several times, and it's always the same team, which, I mean, I don't mind it too much, but it is kind of like, hey, can we like change the team up or something? But yeah, so overall, the characters in the game are really good. I agree with you. Yes, in this game, they have character,
and they become tight knit. Like they all come together at certain points and like interact with each other more. At first, they're all kind of strangers, and then the world becomes more friendly to you and towards them.
There's a development of a larger team.
Yes.
And a city together, working together.
Yes, precisely.
And I think, it was a very good way to do it and to build bonds. And, it's a very unique Pokemon game. And I thought it was a really good, they were taking a chance with this game. And I think it really paid off, in my opinion. I thought it was a great game, and I thought it was beautiful. There were features like seeing Pokemon land on light posts, seeing Pokemon in trees, and you could catch those Pokemon. They were in the world. I thought that was great. I would have liked to seen more of it. And so I thought those were really good features. The only shiny Pokemon other than the Mareep that everyone gets as part of a side quest that I have caught so far is a Pidgey. I was just standing in the
Dude,
street and the Pidgey just landed on a light post right beside me and it was shiny.
I
And I was
found
like, oh,
shiny
okay.
Ekans towards the beginning of the game, but I didn't find anything else after that.
Yeah. Okay. So personally for me, I am not a, I don't like to grind on games, especially
Right.
for something like that. I know a lot of people love shiny
I
hunting.
used to
That is
be
not
pretty
my
into
thing.
it.
And I just don't take the time to do that. I am
Yeah.
very story driven. I like to start the game, train the Pokemon, do the battles, win, beat the game. That's what I like to do. And so for me, I preferred Scarlet and Violet's approach of shinies being not that rare. Um,
Right.
this game, they were more common than in
And
some
they
other
actually
games.
acknowledge them too as shinies in this game.
Yeah. But I personally would like even more shinies. I get some people want that to be protected and harder to get. I do not. I would love there to be shiny
One
Pokemon
thing that I was a little
much more
frustrated on
commonly.
that aspect, the shiny charm, you always get it from completing the regional decks. If you complete the regional decks in this game, you get nothing. Like there's a regional dex, there's a mega Pokemon dex, and if you complete either or, you get nothing. Everything is based on Mabel's research. And that could be catching Pokemon, that could be doing something. Initially, when the game came out, you had to battle, what was it, 1,000 trainers to complete her research to get the shiny charm. You know, like if you, I've beat the game with every side quest. I've caught every Pokemon. I've caught a lot of them many times, and I'm maybe like 5 or 6 levels away from completing a research. So I don't have the shiny charm yet, and most of my Pokemon are level 100. Like I have several teams of level 100 Pokemon, and it's just kind of weird to me that everything is focused around the research instead of the actual research of completing the Pokédex like the other games. Because it's very redundant. Like, why would I be catching a water type 400 times in a row?
Yes, and that is one of the main elements of Legends Arceus I did not like. It was
Oh
catch
yeah,
the
yeah.
same Pokemon 20 times. Catch it. No, I'm not going to do that. Like I don't have time for that. And so to me, I really don't even always go and complete Pokedex. I haven't completed the Pokedex in this game. It's not something I typically do a lot of, especially when you're dealing with situations like trade evolutions and things like that.
I do think they made it a lot easier with having evolved Pokemon in the wild. I think since
Yeah.
Scarlet and Violet did that, it's made it a lot more manageable to complete a Pokédex
Well, and like
and
in this
evolving
game, you
faster.
are given an opportunity to catch Gengar.
Yes,
Okay, well, that is not that it's very good in the game, in my
right.
opinion,
It's kind of trash.
but yeah, I tried using it and it just wasn't good. But you have the opportunity to catch it, so that's positive. But what I mean is, I need an incentive to actually even bother to catch all these Pokemon, and the idea of keep catching multiple of the same type, I'm not really I'm not really into that. And a lot of times the rewards you're getting are TMs that your Pokemon probably already know. And so I didn't think there was a huge incentive there. One thing about this game I do want to say from a mechanic standpoint that I really like. So I have always favored, and this is probably me as probably honestly being a bigger fan of the anime than the games, is I have always drastically preferred the tournaments in the show to battling the Elite Four. And one of the things that I've really liked in the show, if you watched Journeys, was the World Coronation Series. And so Ash is, moving up the rankings, battling people from all over the world. Then he's battling in higher levels of the tournament against better trainers on bigger scales until he finally reaches the Masters 8. I loved that format. They kind of went with a format sort of like that in Sword and Shield, and a
I like that a
way
lot.
scaled down version, but I like that. In this game, they were trying to do something very similar to the World Coronation series, I would Pokemon, if you hear this, I would honestly just like the World Coronation series put in a game. I mean,
they did that
this
with the Battle Frontier and Gen 3, yeah.
this to me was I liked it, but it was repetitive. The stakes didn't seem super high a lot of times,
Yeah.
and I didn't really like that, it felt like it was just a box you were checking.
You had to grind to get a single ticket for the main event fight many times.
And
It's
then
dreadful.
skip. You
Yeah.
skip. Once you go up about 3 levels, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this 26 times, which whether you like that or not,
Hated it.
people have a very different view on that. I didn't want over half the alphabet to be handed to me on a silver platter. And so I didn't like being moved up that high. I would have liked to have seen.
That
I've
would have
always
been
kind
a
of
200-hour game.
yeah, it would have been way too long. But I just would like to see me earning it up the rankings
Yeah.
to a tournament
I feel like
is really
that's
what
fair.
I would like to see.
And it's funny
But
because at the end of the game, they basically make you do that if you want the other side quests and the Floette and so on. You have to fight 20 more of those. So like, and what's weird is you do these ZA Infinite ones. The first one you fight's the rank Z guy that you already fought. He's not changed at all, but then some of the characters that you fight have
yeah, that
grown a
threw
little
me
bit.
off hardcore. So when I did that, I was like, are you kidding me? You're just having me fight the rank Z guy with his
Yeah,
scrub, like
he's a
level
chump.
5 Pokemon. And then, so I went into the next fight not thinking I even like needed really good Pokemon because I thought it was going to be the ranked Y, and that was not the situation. It does not stay like that.
Yeah,
But so, I mean, I like this direction.
yeah, it's good.
I would just like it to be instead of like a tedious fighting people on the street, give me
Structure
big
it.
battles to do. Yeah.
And don't make
And
me fight the chumps at every single moment.
yeah, no chumps.
I want to start with that, but at the end of the game, you don't want to fight all these like amateur trainers over and over again just to fight one person, then go back and like it's just dreadful. And there were a lot of gameplay loop things like that. Like I noticed like it'd be like do a small story dialogue mission, fight a boss, 3 boss fights, always 3. Every time there'd be 3 Mega Evolved boss fights of Rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon. And some of these were easy, and then some were just like borderline impossible sometimes because they'd be sending out Pokemon. I noticed in any kind of fight with a wild Pokemon or the rogue Pokemon, they would be targeting you directly instead of your Pokemon that are actually fighting them. So I'd be getting chased by all these chump Pokemon that my Pokemon could not catch up with to do moves in time because they have to like pause before they attack. And then the move misses, so I'm like running for my life. So you do like a story mission, 3 of these fights, and then you would do whatever. I think they do 2 wild zones at a time with that, and then like 5 or 6 side quests. And it would just be that, and then the exact same order of operations, exactly the same again. And maybe in a different episode we'll talk about the DLC once we've had a chance to play it some more. But I've noticed so far with it, it's exactly the same. Like they just have this
it's
very redundant
very
gameplay loop.
loopy. And like, I don't want to, we'll talk about it in that episode, but I do not want to keep making donuts. And,
Yes, you do.
Like, I don't enjoy that. And then, some of the rogue battles and that, you're just like, what in the world? I do want to talk about, if you haven't played the DLC yet, I'm just going to say this. There is a battle, and in these battles, the Pokemon are drastically leveled higher than what you play in the game. They're like, what you need is for your Pokemon to be well over 100.
By the end of
donuts
the
are
main
for.
game, you are intended to have every Pokemon in your party is level 100. You cannot play the DLC feasibly without
Which is
level 100
definitely not
Pokemon.
where I was at, which is why I guess it gives you all the experience candy and stuff. But
Yeah.
I got in a battle where you have to fight 2 rogue Crabominable at the same time.
Dude,
And
I don't even think I've done that yet.
They're like giant, by the way.
You fought
So
that before the sushi?
yeah, I haven't
Dude,
fought the
I had to
sushi
fight
yet.
a
Well,
plate of
maybe I did.
sushi.
I don't know. Honestly, I haven't finished the
It's
DLC
so
and it's been a while
forgettable that
since
it
I played.
doesn't really even matter.
But the Crabominable thing, it's not actually one of the boss, like, rogue fights where, like,
Oh,
Karina's
okay.
helping you and everything. It's like a side mission boss fight. Okay, every Pokemon, well, the first few times I tried it, like, nearly any Pokemon I sent out there, even legendary Pokemon,
Yeah.
before they can even, like, finish doing their aura farming intro and launch an attack, or maybe they launch one attack, they are knocked out because there
Yeah.
are two giant rogue Crabominals just
On the
punching them
loose,
in the
the
face
snow
as
crabs,
soon
like,
as
running
they're like
around,
coming after you with a vengeance.
hungry.
And it was just like, what am I doing? And so I got tired of even trying it for a while. I have passed it now, but it was
Right.
like, why are you just punching my Pokemon in the face before I can even
Dude,
do
there's
anything?
2 side quests that I can think of in the main base game that were like this. I did all the side quests in the main game, and I have not done any of the side quests in the DLC because there's just too many. Like, I was spending
There's a
so
lot
much
of
time
side
in the main
quests.
game, so I put it to the side. I've been really burnt out on it for now. But, like, what was it? The first one was you have to have a, Pupitar in your
Uh,
party, and you have
I
to
I have
fight
not beat
an
this one yet.
Aegislash. And what you have to do is take advantage of their lack of special defense by using Stone Edge. Well, actually, first you have to use some kind of like bulk up type move, and then you have to immediately protect or they'll one shot you, and then you have to quickly use Stone Edge and then use Quick Attack to kill them. And it took me so many attempts. I had to just look it up because if you don't use this exact specific move set that it doesn't even hint at, you just have to know the inner workings of these two Pokemon and what they're good with. Otherwise, you are not going to win that fight. And there's another one that's like you have to fight the opponent's Pikachu with a Pikachu, and they have like a level like what is it, 80 Pikachu or something like that, or 60? No, it's 65, I think. And if you beat it, you get the was it electric ball or something that you can use to strengthen a Pikachu. But then there's another fight where you have to fight a Raichu with a Raichu. And then after you get done with that fight, they have the audacity to ask you if you want to trade it for an Alolan one. So I went and just caught another one, gave it to them. Like, what? These quests are just like, it's irritating as it is, and then they do something afterwards that makes it even more irritating. And they lead into each other. One of the side quests was it was the Elite Four of Furfrou, and you have to catch like 6 of them, and you fight one single trainer with one Furfrou at different battle cafes 4 times, and then you have to fight the champion, and she has 6 of them, and her last one's a shiny one, and these guys are so tough. I think I bulked my team up to like level 50 or 60 on these guys, and I could barely beat her. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of just really hard side quests, but most of the side quests I think were great for world building. Like, I kind of see where, so people who think the game felt dull or empty, I really just don't think they were playing the side quests because I think they lightened up the world a lot. And the more that you do, the more things show up in the world and the more characters you recognize and things overlap in the side quests. And it made Lumiose City feel alive.
Yeah, and I have actually not completed every single side quest, but you need to do the side quests if you're playing this game because they open so much more up for you.
And they're so funny.
Some of them are just, throwaway side quests, but some of them, like there are side quests where you get the Kalos starters. There are side quests where you meet a character that is going to play a role later. And so the side quests are not just meaningless in this game. They do things. And, so a lot of them have little stories to them. And so those, to me, I thoroughly enjoyed the game. I have also gotten burnt out on the DLC and
Yes.
have been taking a break from it. But as far as just the main game, I blazed through the game.
Yeah,
And
it took me, like, I think I dropped the game after I played it the first day it came out, then I dropped it for a little bit, and then I just played through it, like, once pretty much.
so I have been very pleased with the game overall. I have not spent as many hours on it as you have, but I also did not complete all the side quests or catch all the Pokemon
I
yet.
think it's a solid, like, 6.5 that could easily be brought up to, like, a 9, 9.5 if the battling system was polished. Like,
And if you're asking me, like, okay, just a super quick playthrough of the game,
right.
the story, I would rate this game very highly. I thoroughly enjoy the story and the setting and the Pokemon and the quality of life improvements.
Yes.
But if you were going to really try to, like, a completionist type thing or, really spend a lot of time on it, there's some tedious things and some execution issues that might make it not as good. I would probably still rate the game pretty highly. This is not a game where I think I'm gonna be doing a lot of replay of
For
it,
sure.
but as far as just a one-time playthrough or maybe one day a second playthrough, I thoroughly enjoyed the story part of the game.
Yes.
The DLC so far has been a bit of a slug for me.
Yeah,
I
it's a
I
little
don't
jarring
really
going
enjoy
into
the
it.
DLC.
And also, I was gonna say to wrap up this review, I thought we could talk about, maybe the ending to the game. Again, major spoilers. But at the end of the game, you come together with everyone that you've fought so far in the ZA Royale, and there is a big threat going on. Apparently, Quasicordo is opening up a wormhole by accident, right? Um, Nope, that's the DLC. I'm sorry. But that is happening because of this. Lumiose Tower becomes alive from from the mega energy. And so Zygarde, who's been following you around this whole time to see if you're worthy, decides to fight alongside you to protect Lumiose Tower. And AZ, he's been I don't know, what's he been doing? He's been sitting on the roof kind of reflecting on his life, and he decides he's going to finally give Floette to someone to help take care of this threat. And so you're the most powerful, but Tawny decides that she wants to take Floette to the top of the tower. Almost
This
immediately
is a
gets
part of the
murdered.
game that I really didn't
I
like, and
hated
this
that.
goes into the Tawny situation. They make this whole big deal about proving who is the strongest Mega Evolution user, and you have this big battle with her. You
Mm.
you earn Floette, you earn, being the strongest Mega
And
Evolution
she
user,
says the
and
winner takes all, and then she still cannot
then
handle that.
Tawny just goes rogue, takes Floette. And then another part of the game with this that I really don't like is then she just like dumps Floette in the hotel and
Yes,
you never see the two of them together. She's never,
you have to do, was it 15 missions of the ZA Infinite Royal? And then you get Floette, and there's a cutscene of
which I
her
have not
just
even
giving
made
it
it to
to
this
her.
yet. Yeah, it's insane.
Or giving it
And
to him.
Tawny is a terrible character
Yes.
and she's extremely arrogant and, it's just a lot of things could be alleviated if Tawny wasn't so prideful and
And there's no
and
redemption arc either. Like it's not like there's character development. It's just constantly being rewarded.
it's not portrayed as that's a negative or
Yeah.
that there's anything
People
wrong
just
with
kind of shrug
Tawny
it
or
off.
whatever. It's like, oh, Tawny's just Tawny. She's great, and everything. It's like, no, Tawny is the villain of this
Like
game.
she put us in debt with a syndicate at the beginning of the game. She
Yeah.
almost like ended the city. Like it's crazy.
But yeah, as far as like we're talking about AZ, the
Yeah.
ending is I've found it to be really impactful. I thought that I would have liked to have seen. I thought that they kind of ended it a little quicker than what I would
Yeah,
have
like we
wanted
defeat
to.
the tower and
Uneventful.
then it cuts to credits, and immediately after the credits you see like, what you're probably referring to. it was almost like it kind of like shook me up a little bit because
Yeah.
it was kind of unexpected. Like I knew something was going to happen, but it didn't really seem like that's what would be what happened.
Yeah, and this big, which I mean, at this point we've said spoilers, so um with AZ dies, which is just you're just like told about it after the credits, like that he
You see his
died while you
tombstone.
were, yeah, you're in the cemetery, and while you are fighting to save the city, he dies. And it was impactful. I like it as a story thing, but I also was like, we couldn't have had like a scene of people with him,
Right. He
he
also
just,
gives the hotel to Tawny,
yes, who
who
is
abandons
the last person who,
immediately.
so he dies off screen alone, and I just didn't love that aspect of it. But it is a really, he
It's
has
very
completed his 3,000-year life. He's been wandering on Earth carrying this guilt. He finally had his redemption and meets back up with Floette,
and it's
and now it's the end of his life.
I do like how they parallel this with Lysandre, who is called L in this game. I had to look this up because at some point in the game, Lysandre at the very end, I should say, he comes up to you. He's been talking to you the whole game to see if you're worthy of Zygarde, and he comes up to you at the end and he's like, like he doesn't have any memories from what he did in X and Y, but he's like trying to grow, trying to be a better person, and he mentions trying to think of what he's going to do for the next 3,000 years and like what impact he could make on himself and the world. And I think that's touching whenever you know that something happened to make him immortal, but it's only hinted at that he's immortal. So I looked this up. I'm like, is Lysandre immortal for some reason? They're like, yeah. So Zygarde saved him from the explosion at the end of X and Y, and for some reason he's immortal, completely unexplained. So Lysandre is now just completely immortal, and unexplained whatsoever. Maybe it's explained in the DLC, but I doubt it. It was kind of a walk off for him. But I
Yeah,
was
and
cracking up at that. I was like, "What?"
story wise, I mean, it's cool, and it's the parallel of him and AZ. They both did this, and now they both will walk Earth for thousands of years. Well, apparently forever, but that was not really
And
explained
it didn't
or
explain why
anything.
AZ was coming to the end of his life. Like he
Yeah, like
was
why is
immortal,
he
but now
dying?
he's not. Or it may have just been a
So
perception of immortality or something.
yeah, I think it kind of plays fast and loose with the definition of immortality in this game. It's
Yeah,
it's immortality is you live a super long time.
yeah,
And I agree with you. I liked at first when Lysander walks on the screen, I'm like, "Are you kidding me, bro?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" It was kind of the Emperor Palpatine. Somehow he survived. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like all of that, and Zygarde saves him, and he's back. Well, I ended up really liking him as a
yeah. I
character, and
think so
really,
too.
I loved the redemption arc. And when he's sorry, like he can't remember a lot of it, especially
Right.
at the beginning,
And
and
no
then he
one
does
really
remember.
people, like, bring it up and are angry at first, but then they come to understand and, like, it gives these little moments that I think really make the game better for it. Um,
And they give kind of some background of that, what Lysander was wanting to do in the original games is, heinous. There's not any other way to phrase it. But he, at one point, was a nice guy trying to help people, and he became embittered. And a lot of it was, we talked about arrogance with Tawny, his arrogance. And that's something that Lysander talks about, that, you know, you can't let your ego control you. And so I really like that he learns from that, and he's very sorry for that, and he's got to live with that. But he's also kind of given a new lease on life and given a new opportunity. And when he's walking away from you, I was kind of sad. I was like, I stick around with me, dude. We're bros now. Yeah. And will you ever see him again? You don't know. And So I thought it was a cool story
Yeah.
thing.
And even with Grisham and Grizel, like they were super pompous whenever you meet them in this game, still kind of like fanatics of Lysandre. And then as you open up and kind of tell them about, AZ and, they know about Lysandre and L, whatever his name is now, but they, don't want to accept it. But then, as circumstances change, they also kind of soften up. And everyone in this game loses their just crazy ego that they have. Like I think this game, one of the
Except Tony.
major, acceptance. No, I think the major like takeaway from this game is like setting aside your ego and coming together for a greater cause. And Tawny just does not care about that. It's an absolute
No, Tawny
exception of
cares
the
about
rule.
Tawny.
Yeah.
And, that's something like
I love that in
when
the
you first
Syndicate too. Sorry.
when you first meet some of these Team Flare characters, it's almost like they know what they did was wrong, but they don't want to admit that they were wrong. And, if the way we started it was good, you just didn't understand. And now people are persecuting us and everything. But then by the end of the game, it's kind of accepted, hey, we really messed up.
Yeah.
And, there is, the game kind of deals with, can a person be redeemed and brought back into society after doing something horrible? And the game walks away with the answer of yes, that there is a redemption for someone who's done a bad thing. And so I think that that's a good message, because I think a lot of movies and shows and games take this super cheap redemption arc of, no matter how bad the character was, we'll just have a token redemption at the
With
end of the
no
thing. Oh, they
guilt.
weren't so bad. Yeah, no guilt, no repentance, no
They have
change.
to carry the weight of their actions throughout the rest of
Yeah.
their life for thousands of years. For L,
Yes.
like it's not a small thing. Like he is stuck with this guilt that is going to carry him across the world for the rest of his who knows how long life.
And some of the other characters, Mabel comes to accept, she has to stay there, and
And she kind of
people
wants
look,
it.
yeah, and people look at them differently and everything, but then society does forgive them and give them a second chance and everything. And so I think it's a really cool game, especially the main plot storyline. And it just, especially like when you're in Lysandre Labs under the cafe and everything, just, you're
Really
really
cool.
looking at, I mean, this is a group of people who nearly like wiped out all life on the planet. And now, moving forward from that. So I think it's pretty cool. Overall, I give the game 2 big thumbs up for sure. I would like to see another game like this. This is
Yeah,
something we've talked about some, will they keep doing the Legends games? I
I
think they're
really
going to
hope
keep doing
so.
the Legends games. And yeah, and then you don't have to,
I don't have to
we could
commit.
try different things. But one thing that we would have a question about is, so when Legends Arceus was made, everybody kind of assumed Legends games were going to be set in the distant past. Well, this was not set in the distant past. This was set in the near future from the X and Y games, or I guess you would call it the present for us.
Yeah, and even at the beginning, like people were like, "Well, is this 1800s? Is this when Lumiose was being built?" Because that first teaser, it really seemed like
Yeah.
that, but no, it's a sequel.
And so what will they do with Legends games going forward? Well, you're kind of left with endless
Mhm.
possibilities. We both have certain things that we would like to see for sure. I think a general consensus is everyone would like to see a back in time Johto
Oh yeah,
Legends. I would love to see that.
the
There's
lore
so
masters
much
for the
there.
dragon lore masters from the Delta episode of Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire that Zinnia was part of. She's like the last in the line of them. I think it'd be really cool to see like something to do with that, like ancient Hoenn, um, something with the dragons. Because I don't know, like a lot of underutilized space kind of things like Deoxys. Maybe there's more about the
Yeah.
meteors landing that had the mega stones because those aren't from the planet, from our understanding so far.
Well, and there's so many more places you can go with Mega Evolution, and
Right.
and you had the Mega Evolution specials,
Yes.
which not a lot of
Yes.
people would have seen, and then the X and Y series, and I really like the way that they handle Mega Evolution in those, and then Journeys as well. But so there's so many places you can go with Mega Evolution that I would like to see. Obviously, don't go right back to Mega Evolution,
Right.
but
I think they put so many in this game just to satiate that hunger that people might have for
yeah,
it. I think going back to the primal forms might be an interesting thing to do.
I would
Um,
like to see. Okay, so I know this is a mechanic people don't love, and I'm not arguing for whether it was executed well or not in the original games. Like, I feel like you could do something with Z moves and Alola that would be really cool in a Legends game. Um,
for
I would
sure.
like to see, and this is me I grew up with Gen 1, so I would like to see something. Kanto has never really been expanded beyond. I mean, I know we had Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, which you and I both love, but the game has not been expanded beyond the original map from the original game. And what I would like to see is, we all know something went on in Kanto, was there a Pokemon war in Kanto we want to explore in a Legends game? Do we want to take some of these towns and make them bigger, make them look like a Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet, Legends ZA type city
Hopefully
in
not Scarlet
Kanto?
Violet.
Yeah,
So many sandwich
uh,
shops, so empty.
everyone's eating
Yeah, everyone.
sandwiches, but but I would like to see something done in Kanto again later. I know people have Kanto burnout. Here's what I don't want to see, and this would be maybe a hot take, but I don't need to see any more Sinnoh for a while. I know there's a lot of history there and everything, but we went really Sinnoh heavy for a while, and I could stand a break from
I'd be cool
Sinnoh
with
for a while.
Unova. I know this is a hot take, not my favorite games, but I think the Unova region is really in need of some attention. Um, for that kind of game, especially. Maybe even I think Johto is the perfect, like you were saying,
Yeah, I
Johto is
agree.
perfect for it.
Johto's what I want.
Yeah.
And I think Johto, the Gen 2 games and Heart Gold, Soul Silver are some of the most widely beloved games
Yes.
in the series. And I think it was one of the games that they did the most with making you feel a history in the region. And, with the legendary beasts, with,
Also, the end of Team Rocket in that game,
yeah.
very impactful.
And I mean, there's just so much about the Gen 2 games that were so ambitious and different than a lot of the games. And there's a very like ancient Japanese tone to the game that I think would be really cool in a Legends game. I mean,
It's a very
Celebi,
creepy
Lugia,
feeling, like especially, well, even the crossover. I know we said Sinnoh, probably not, but there was that mystery event that never came out in the West, where you go and you the Arceus egg, where Arceus creates the egg for either Dialga, Palkia, or Giratina. And it starts showing real pictures of the world and a bunch of like unknowns flying around in 3D on your DS screen. And it's very unsettling. Yeah, I feel like capturing that kind of like mystical thing with ancient
I'm really glad you said that
misunderstanding would be great.
about Unknown, because to me, there's so much you could do with Unknown. And when Gen 2 and Johto came out, it was like, ooh, this is an uber big deal. But then
Yeah. When have we
the
seen it
Unknown,
last other than Pokemon Go? Like it hasn't
the
really been a
un,
thing.
yeah, the Unknown were not really a thing in the Gen 2 games, even though you had the whole Ruins of Alpha and everything, which is never really explained or talked about hardly. Then you have the movie, Pokemon, the third movie with Entei and the Unknown. And then the Unknown periodically in the series pop back up. just here and there. And
They've kind of
there's
been replaced by Zygarde cells, I've noticed.
yeah. And so, like, there was one episode of Journeys where unknowns show up and plunge an entire town into permanent darkness because they're granting the wish of a
What?
child. And
That's
it's actually pretty cool.
crazy.
But yeah, so there's so much you could do with unknown, and they have their own dimension, all this
Time
kind of stuff.
Deoxys took over that town in that movie, Destiny Deoxys. There's just dozens of them
Dude.
from space, and they just start taking people away to find like a sound effect that they hear.
But there is so much you could do with Johto. So I'd really like to see that. Please, Johto.
Nah. 5 more Sinnoh games.
Yeah, have some more Dialga and Palkia. You will have it and you will like it. And I say that because at the same time we had Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, Legends Arceus. You had the special from Netflix, the Arceus Chronicles. A very heavy point of the plot in Journeys at that point was Dialga, Palkia, these types of things. Like, they just threw so much at you, and I know people love a lot about it, and I'm not trying to say anything
When I was
bad
younger,
about
unfortunately,
Sinnoh.
that was when I fell off of the games too. I think
Yeah.
when the series started on TV and the games came out, I couldn't get into it, so I just quit. So that was, and I came back to it eventually, but again, yeah, that was like kind of my falling off point, so I've never cherished those.
Well, and for me, which we could talk about this more in another episode, but for me, I quit after Gen 3.
Right.
So Sinnoh was all new to me as an adult. I didn't have this love for it. And okay, here's another hot take that people would not like. Generally speaking, when I'm looking online, it seems like most people like the Diamond and Pearl series the best, and you have the whole Paul plot line and all that kind of stuff. I'm not disputing that plot line with Ash and Paul is really good. The Diamond and Pearl series is one of my least favorite series of the whole anime.
Yeah.
Just as a whole, production wise, voice acting wise, Pokemon wise, I feel like Diamond and Pearl is where you reach the absolute epitome of really overdoing the Team Rocket formula that was throughout the first 4 series.
It was also around the time they switched to Cartoon Network, and I remember the art style. I think it was more like the 3D overlaid 2D instead of cell shaded.
I can tell you exactly when that happened because it was a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the end of Ruby and Sapphire, at the end of the Gen 3 series, about the time that he's about to do the Battle Frontier, they changed the art style and all the voice actors.
Because that happened right before the Lucario Mystery Mew movie, because that one had the 3D in it. I remember that, because they were showing off the Gen 4 stuff in it.
If you were a fan of the series growing up, that was extremely jarring.
Yeah.
And I don't just say that as it was a change. I grew to like some of the voice actors later on, but they struggled to find their footing for a while, the new voice acting crew, in my opinion. And they weren't really sure what they wanted Ash to sound like anymore. And so for me, the voice acting, and here's something
they want them to all be kind of older in that one too, like in Gen 4. I noticed like they are the same, but it really like they tried to make it targeted for a more mature audience or something, like it's like started out with the Lucario Mystery Mew, and it was like super great movie, but really just different from what had been.
Well, and that the formula got so old to me by then that even like going back and watching it, like there are just episodes that I just skip.
Yeah.
Because the filler episodes really feel like filler, which they didn't in some of the earlier generations of the show, and they don't in the later generations of the show. But I also felt like here's been a jarring shift for me as a fan that I haven't liked, is the way the Pokemon were voiced changed with that voice
Mhm.
acting changing production studios, and they sound a lot sillier. They sound a lot kiddier and
Less gritty. Like,
yeah, less like Magnemite is an example. If you hear what
oh
Magnemite
yeah,
and Magneton sounded like in Gen 1 versus what they sound
yeah, they
like when
sound
they're
sharper
voiced
now.
now, like they really sounded metallic and
Yeah.
like and here's another example, and there's probably different ways of people would feel about this, but Pokemon like Nidoking and Rhydon, these real monster Pokemon,
Yeah.
they didn't say their names. They growled and roared.
Yeah, they're more animalistic.
And like Charizard's very intimidating sounding in the first few seasons of
It's
the
like,
show.
"Rah, rah, rah, rah,
Now
rah."
they're like really silly, comedic, saying their names kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I always found that to be really jarring. And I say that as someone who I love the X and Y series.
Mhm.
I love Sun and Moon. I love the journeys. But I felt like the end of Ruby and Sapphire, Diamond Pearl, and Unova were the worst time for the show, for sure. But
One more loop back to the game, by the way, to ZA.
yeah,
Something that I managed to catch every time I came across Pikachu. You know how in Gen 6, X and Y, they switched Pikachu to saying its own name while the other characters still like it?
yeah,
Pikachu makes his Pokemon Yellow sound effect in this game.
yeah.
I thought
They
that was
switched.
super cool, but none of the other ones do. They still do the Gen 6 kind of sprite effect. So that was
And
really
that's
neat.
one thing I want to mention, and we won't go into this a lot on this episode here, but like, and they've improved it a little bit starting in Scarlet and Violet, but why do the 3D models, especially of the Gen 1 Pokemon, have to be so sucked of their color? Like like if you watched the anime or looked at the old games,
I
like
love the watercolor art.
look how vibrant, like if you take Charmander, Charizard, look how vibrant that orange is.
Well,
Okay,
I don't
they
think
are
that's
like,
the intention. Have you
I
like
just
in
feel
the
like now
concept art?
they're
I really like the original concept where it's like super watercolored and watered down.
I just feel like a lot of the new games, they look pale
They did
and
fix some of
like,
them. You know how
yeah,
the shinies for Gengar and Slowpoke I think changed in this
yeah.
game because that was a problem. Slowpoke's more pink instead of white now as a shiny.
I mean,
Yeah, I
just
agree.
kind of lifeless for a
Really
while.
washed out in X and Y, extremely so. I think
You're like,
Sun
why
and
is
Moon brightened things up a bit, but went back to the
yeah.
same way again. Well,
Well, I think we will wrap up this review of Legends ZA. Again, we would both say good game. I think I would give it a little bit
yeah,
higher score than you would.
I'm a little too critical.
But there are some things to be critical of, especially as you play the game for a long time. But by and large, we very much like the game. Good
Yes.
job, Pokemon. We would like to explore more cities and more regions like that. And so if you liked this episode, just make sure to follow, subscribe, like, share it with your friends, and tune in next week for our next episode.
Thank you for listening, guys.